primary place that the sages talk about kibud avim, honoring parents, is in the Talmud in Kiddushin, in the around 30-31. So this these snippets, these quotes are from that place in the Talmud Kiddushin 30, and it starts off by saying, we know that honor your parents, honor your father and mother is actually part of the Ten Commandments, right? Which number commandment is it?
6.
5. There you go, 5 there. Right, the parent says, I know. So it is obviously a very, very crucial, important mitzvah. Think about it. It's up there with, believe in God and, thou shalt not murder and all these fundamentals that our society is built upon. Even everyone embraces the Ten Commandments as guiding principles for societies to be successful. And amongst that, we have honor our parents. So obviously, it's very important. But it's striking to see what the Talmud says with regards to honoring your parents. Our rabbis taught. So there's a verse in the Torah. Kabed et avicha v'et imecha, honor your father and your mother. So that's one verse. And it also says, honor the Lord with thy substance. Thus, the Torah compares the honor due to parents to that of the omnipresent. Think about that. We think of honoring parents, it's really important. But the Talmud says that is comparable. The Torah equates honoring parents with honor God. So that's, exactly. Think of the enormity of that. Yes, it's part of the tablets, it's part of the Ten Commandments, but much more so, we're comparing it, we're equating honoring your parents to the honor that you have to give to God. And because those two verses are reading right next to each other. Additionally, it also said, you shall fear every man his mother and his father. And it also says, the Lord your God thou shalt fear, and him thou shalt serve. I hate these thous. I modernized it. Thus, the Torah equates the fear of parents to the fear of God. Now, this is a new thing. We know you not only have to honor your father and your mother, you have to fear your mother and your father. And the Torah juxtaposes the verse of honoring your parents to the verse honoring God to tell you that as important as it is to honor God, it's important to honor your parents as well. And the Torah juxtaposes the verse telling you to fear your parents, to have respect for your parents, next to having respect to God, to tell you that it equates fear of God to fear of parents. And the last thing that it says over here in the first paragraph, our rabbis taught, there are 3 partners in man. The Holy One, blessed is He, i.e. God, the Father, and the Mother. 3 partners means who composed us? We have our Father, and then we have God. And actually, you have a very, very interesting idea. Very interesting idea, actually brought down in the Talmud elsewhere, also in 31, ironically, in Nida. It says something very strange. And I tried to find interpretations of what it means. I couldn't find it. I looked for it today. And it says the same sentence. There's 3 partners in every person. God, his father, and his mother. Right? His father gives him fertilizes the white, which compose the bones and the fingernails and the white of the eye. Just five things: the bones, the fingernails, the white of the eye, the teeth, and something else. I can't remember which one. And the mother, she gives the red. The red is like the black of the eye, the skin, the sinews, the muscles, and God, He gives the ability to talk and the ability to speak, the ability to walk, and the ability to whatever, etc., etc. Well, I found it like, I guess I don't know how much science knows about what each parent contributes to the child. I think it's kind of murky. I wouldn't really know like how the build-up of actually taking components from the father and components from the mother and using it, spleening it together to make a child.
So crazy.
But this is something interesting. Just on that note. So that's that. So what do we say? We're saying three things. You have to honor your parents. You have to honor God. You have to fear your parents. You have to respect your parents. You have to fear God. And those things are written out to each other because they're equally important. And the last thing is that there's three partners in every man, in every human: his father, his mother, and his dad. I want to point out here a very important point. If you take a look at the verse talking about honoring, who does it say first? Father or mother? Read it. Honor your father and your mother. What about when it says fear? So why would it? So wait, maybe the father is more important. Maybe the mother is more important. Either way, make up your mind. Why does the Torah say the order of the father and mother differently? By honoring, it says honor your father and then your mother. And by fear, it says honor your mother and then your father. Be consistent, right? Be symmetrical, right? Yeah. Father and mother, or mother and father. Either way, don't have one verse honoring, having first the father and the mother, and the verse relating to fear is mother then father. Is that an interesting question? Trevor, I see Trevor's mind racing.
That's how it would normally.
Huh? Yeah. Intense.
Where does the fear verse come from? I mean, the honor ones, obviously the Ten Commandments.
Probably Leviticus. I can find it in the actual source. Leviticus.
Isn't it when they did repetition of 10 Commandments?
No.
It's they use the same word in that one?
Huh? I can tell you exactly where it is. It's not in the Ten Commandments. I can tell you exactly where it is. And it is. Yes, Leviticus 19:3. Let's think of the chapter that talks about love your fellow as yourself. A few verses earlier, because that's also Leviticus 19, 19, 20, 22, something like that. Right? A few verses earlier. Yes. So is that your question?
I think so.
Yeah. So the Talmud says like this. It's very interesting. Children are more prone to honor their mother more than their father. Whenever the camera zooms in on the athlete, he says the same thing every time. Hi, Mom. So they say, it's always hi, Mom. Because people have a tendency to honor their mother, to stick up for their mother more than their dad. And then the Torah says, you know what? Honor your father and your mother. You have a greater tendency to honor your mother than your father. So therefore it has to predicate and say, honor your mother. Honor your father. Make sure you don't honor your mother more than your father. They're equal. Conversely, when it comes to fear, right, a father rarely tells his child, you better wait till your mother gets home. That doesn't happen, right? I don't know. Maybe in some families. Like in my family. In my family, maybe. like my family. But just wait.
My dad's a nice one. A scary one.
But generally, it's you wait till your dad gets home and he's going to blow his top, right? So therefore, in that case, man has greater tendency to honor or to fear their dad. Therefore, it says, fear your mom and your dad. Mom goes first.
Sometimes don't both parents, stick together and say, like, no, you can't do this? Like, sometimes.
Yes, and ideally it should be like that. Parenting, the number one rule about parenting is to make sure that both parents are aligned. They're on the same page, exactly. So it's better to be wrong and on the same page than when there's discord, because there's nothing worse than it for a child than to see their parents. Well, parents could disagree. It's fine for parents to disagree.
With the decisions for their children.
Yeah, exactly. Like what we do is that if you have a disagreement, we don't want to argue in front of the kids. It's unsettling for kids. Yeah. But our kids know we don't agree.
Or you can always, ask your mother. Okay.
Household time.
Like, ask my mom, what do you think? What do you
That's
say?
just poor decision making. That's what I think. Every time my kid comes to me, oh, can I have this? Can I have that? Go ask your mom, right? Go ask mommy. And he's like, mommy, go ask Abba, right?
My little sister one time would ask my mom, and she would say no, so she would go ask my dad, and he would say yes.
Oh, she's smart. My parents were too smart for us. They always knew.
There's actually a story. Also, this I didn't write all the stories that were going on in this piece of Talmud, but right behind this piece of Talmud, this one guy comes on. This one student comes over to his teacher and says, "What do I do if my mom says give me a glass of water and my dad says give me a glass of water? Who do I get a glass of water first?"
You get two, because you have 2 hands.
But let's say he has one hand only. I don't know. Or let's say it was give me a barrel of wine. Well, what do I do then? If I have to order them equally, what do I do? And very strange, because then he tells him, he says, I can tell that you're actually an orphan. That's what he tells him. And he's like, and like, you're just asking me to, like, to get, to just get me, you just try and drive me crazy. So he says, what you should do is just take 1 cup of water and put it on the floor and squat like a chicken. That's what it says. What that means is discussed at length with the commentaries. It's very interesting. So it might mean what the simplest understanding is that he's telling him, this is not applicable to you. You're just asking to drive me crazy. Yeah. So take a cup of water and squawk like a chicken, which is his way of like telling him stop bothering me. Or it could mean like there are some commentaries who take this story and try to say, well, what does a chicken mean, and what's the meaning behind it? What are you really trying to tell them, etc., etc., etc. Now, 3 partners in every man. Interesting. So we're saying that there's like a consortium here. There's like honoring the people who made you. You have to honor God. You have to honor your parents. And right after that it says, oh, they're actually one team that created you. Mm-hmm. So it seems like
by honoring your parents, you're honoring God. So
it's all like one group. It's all like one group. But also, it's like the same reason why you would honor your parents, you honor God, or vice versa. It's all about gratitude. They brought you into existence. There's 3 partners. They brought you into existence. You have to make sure that you respect them. You have to make sure that you're thankful and appreciative to what they did for you. Mm-hmm. Now, my grandfather's story. My grandfather, in his last will and testament. So he writes. My grandfather wrote many books, and he writes. I remember I was in the hospital right after he died. I was there. And they opened up his will. He had a will. Everyone knew he had a will. And it said, don't open until after I die. And in his will, because he had lots of royalties for the books, and he had the yeshivas, and the assets, and also the intellectual assets. The intellectual property, so to speak. Tens of manuscripts, really, really interesting stuff that people, would find very valuable. So he had to try to soften up and make sure that none of his kids fight unsuccessfully. I may point out. Anyhow, so he writes. You should know that my real will and testament is in one of my books, the first book that I wrote, Alei Shur, volume 1, on page 303.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And then you open up. Here's the book.
Oh my goodness. That's insane.
It's the book. Okay? And remember, I was like, what? This is published in 1966. And it has in it, encrypted in it somewhere, is his will. On page 303. So I'm like, oh, what? Everyone ran open. Everyone ran. And then you get to page 303, and boom, the top line, just send I remember getting chills, and it's boom, and here's you open up, and this is a will, and it starts off saying, my sons and my daughters, and I'm writing you this letter that you should live many months ago, the whole very long, and he had this in 1966, was published there, and he
you didn't read this before and figure it out?
He camouflaged.
what's the context? If someone buying the book would read it.
So this book is a unique book because it is a book. It's like a guidebook to life, and it starts off with people at the beginning stages, early stages of their life, and it ends off with like marriage and parenting, and then there's a chapter about death, how to die properly. And he says, oh, and I'll show you a sample tzava'ah, sample.
That's crazy.
I'll show you a sample last will and testament that, which is you use as a guidebook. Here's a sample. That's what he writes.
Oh my goodness.
And
That's crazy.
interesting. He writes inside this. First of all, everyone was shocked. Can you imagine? He died in 2005. So for almost 40 years, it's been available, widely available, sold 40,000 copies. This book, widely available. Everyone knows that in his desk, he has this will and testament that says, "Don't open up till the day I die." Right? And then the first thing he writes, "You should know that my real tzava, my real will and testament, is actually really short, page 303." Shocking. And it's funny because if I would have read it, it's so his style. It's actually his literary style. So I probably would have figured it out, but I don't know how people actually did. But he writes here, he's talking about how he says, I want to tell you, he's trying to console his kids in this sample last one. He's trying to console his kids, and he says, I want to tell you what I felt after my parents died. And he says that when my parents died, I felt like an urge to connect to the Almighty. He says, I didn't know what it was. He says, but then I figured out that there's a really deep meaning behind it, a deep reason behind it. Why? Because there's 3 partners in every person. 3 partners. When one of the partners go down, the other partners compensate. The other partners compensate. And therefore he says, all children, even people, Jews who are estranged from practicing Judaism, but they always do Kaddish, and they celebrate the Yortzeit. They have like a spiritual awakening when one of the parents dies, and that's because of this idea of 3 partners in every person. There's in Psalms 27, Ki avi v'imi azavuni v'Hashem ya'asfeni. Because my father and my mother have abandoned me, but God will come and collect me. It's what King David writes. Which is also the same idea that you have like this tripod holding you up, your parents and God, and again, sidetracked. But that's a nice little anecdote. Okay, so what do we have till now? We have, number 1, there's a very important mitzvah to honor your parents and to fear your parents. How do we know it's important? Well, we know it's actually part of the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments. It's the core mitzvah, the core of our responsibilities. That's number 1. Number 2, we compare it to how we have to honor and fear God. That's pretty serious. That's pretty serious. That's number 1. It's really important. Number 2, we have the idea of balance. Make sure they're balanced. Parents are equal. So if you have a tendency to honor one more than the other, right? You have a tendency to honor your mom more than your dad. You have to make sure that you stress to honor your dad. Don't say, I'll honor my mom a little more than my dad. No, the Torah says honor your dad more than your mom. You have a tendency to honor your mom a little more. Make sure that you put extra effort to honor your dad. And conversely, your mom's so nice and sweet. Dad's a scary one with the whip, right? Make sure you fear your mom as well. Make sure you fear your mom as well. You have the respect for your mom.
You mean your dad?
No.
You need respect.
Mom.
You fear your mom, you fear your dad.
No, but it says fear your mom more than your dad. So you mean fear your dad more than your mom?
No.
It's an emphasis on the fact that you need to fear your mother because the fact is you're going to more likely to fear your father.
Exactly.
But what if the dad was never part of the kid's life?
So this is where it gets tricky. Because what if this is a common question. Every time you have this discussion, people will say, well, what about if your dad, wasn't part of the life or wasn't, well, if they passed on, it's a separate discussion. Or if they're a deadbeat dad. Or if they, or if they're just not quality people. And those things have happened. Right, so that's where it becomes a real challenge. because it's unequivocal. Even if your father or your mother is someone that's maybe on their own merit, is not worthy of being respected, your responsibility, as difficult as it may seem, is to find some way to respect them. Remember, you're only here because of them.
That's true.
So yes, you may be miserable about the fact, but also, and you may find it hard to look past their shortcomings, and that's that's your challenge. Everyone has different mitzvot that are challenging for them. It doesn't mean that they could. So this is an opportunity for you to work hard to actually accomplish this. Think about it. If your father is someone who's so noble and so worthy of being respected, your mom is just an angel and she's so sweet and so nice, then of course it'd be very easy for you to fulfill this commandment. It's very easy. But if if it's harder, then it's much more effort spent. It means you worked harder and you accomplished more by yourself with this mitzvah. Jason.
Where I see the practical where this happens is Mr. Gaba that they might have hated the parent in life, didn't like it, didn't respect it, whatever else, and the person died and they said Kaddish because the respect in life they really struggled with. Once the person died, as hard as it was for them, as much as they didn't like them, them showing up to Kaddish, that was their, I'm going to do my duty. Even though I couldn't stand here a lousy parent, I'm going to do my duty and say Kaddish for you. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily deserve it, but it's what I should be doing as a kid. And that's where I see a lot of times is actually, in life it wouldn't have happened, but once in passing they kind of say, this is my duty as a child, as a stepmom. That's where I've seen it happen a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. And also sometimes when God forbid, when the parents dies, then you actually realize that they weren't that bad.
It's terrible. I know.
As children, we have a way of magnifying our parents' shortcomings and not really seeing their successes or their good character traits. The kind of thing where the neighbor's parents seem so much nicer, and everyone wants to trade parents, and everyone, the grass is always greener, right? Elsewhere.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, what about if the child was adopted and it's not the real parents? Because you just said when it's the parents, because the parents gave you life. So what happens then?
Okay, think about it this way. So the question is, do you have to honor your adopted parents, or do you have to honor your biological parents that you don't know?
Well, obviously it's both, right?
Yeah, think about it.
Because they're raising you, but you said because they gave you life.
Yeah, but also they gave you life, but it's a debt of gratitude. Think about how much gratitude you have to give. We kind of feel indebted to our kids, It's like if you're mad at your kid, nothing to do about it, right? But if you choose to adopt, or to foster another child,
right,
then
that's the same thing.
Or that's a serious leap of,
okay,
leap of, I don't know, faith, a leap of,
I wasn't sure.
of effort. So how you certainly have to show gratitude to someone like that, for sure. Would it be with the same severity? That's a good question. What about in-laws? Very good question. What about parents-in-law?
Well, you have to show gratitude because you're married again. Otherwise, they're going to hate you for the rest of the
Okay, I can't say this on I was just kidding. But yes, you have to respect your parents-in-law.
I mean, you don't want there to be already a rift. I mean, that's never good.
That commandment does not extend to in-laws, does it?
Well, it doesn't. But it seems to be that it is sourced. It means you see from Moses, and Moses respected his father-in-law. So there is an idea. It may not be as strong, as it's but it's under the same umbrella. Not quite with the same severity, but the same umbrella. Yeah. And it might be a lot harder if you have a hard time respecting.
No, I'm sure.
Thank God my in-laws are beautiful, tremendous people. But yes, it's very important. And like you said, the most important thing with in-laws, but it's also you don't want to have fights.
No, you don't want to start off that way. It's not a good way. Because I've heard stories. It's not good.
Okay, so here's where it gets interesting.
What?
Look at me giving me some advice here, huh?
What is that? Advice? Oh, advice? Do you want some advice? Is that what you said? I'm so sorry.
Here's where it gets interesting. Okay, so now the Talmud is going to try to quantify. We're trying to quantify to what degree do you have to. Now, what does it mean to honor your parent? What does it mean to respect your parents? So there's many examples given. To honor means to take care of them. It means to give them food if they're hungry, to give them drink if they're thirsty, to help them, to clothe them, etc., etc. Do you have to use your own money? No. You don't have to spend your own money on your parents. It means you don't have to go out and shell out money for your parents. You have to give them food. You don't have to. They should pay for it, but you have to administer it. That's the halacha.
You mean like
It means if they need help, be fed, or if that's your commandment. You make sure that they ensure to get fed. You take care of their bodily needs, whatever that may be.
Okay.
Respect. What does it mean to respect? So many examples brought, but one of them, which will get you depressed, is why I say get depressed. You cannot argue with your parent.
even with little tiny things?
Little tiny things, but you can't say no. I disagree with that. You can't say it. Unless you say, Dad or Mom, I want to know if you give me permission to disagree with you. You're not allowed to sit in their place. If they have like a designated spot on the couch or in a chair, you have to stand up when they walk into the room. When your parent walks into the room, you show respect, right? If the president walks into the room, you stand up. Well, your parent, you also have to stand up, right? It's a measure of respect. And everyone says, what do you mean? My parent would be freaked out with saying weird. Really? Try it. Don't like it, I promise.
Now they probably like it, but if I was a teenager, or even worse, if my sister was a teenager, that they would be like,
Like you're
No,
confused and
I tell people, you know what? Just try it once. And the parents say, yeah.
well, yeah, now, I mean, it's probably not.
Stand up when they walk in, stand up. And when they sit down, you can sit down as well. And they say something you disagree with, say, Dad, I'm not allowed to disagree with you, but could you give me a special permission? Yeah? And you know what? Your parents will appreciate that. As weird as it sounds for us, we're so, but yeah, there's a measure of respect that you have. Now, you're not allowed to argue. This is where it gets even more depressing. Ready? You're not allowed to argue with your parents, but you're not allowed to even agree with them.
I don't understand.
Let's say your dad and your neighbor are having a disagreement. You're not allowed to say, oh, I agree with my dad. Why not? Because it seems like he needs your approval. It seems like your opinion is like holds weight.
What about the other way around?
Could you agree? Well, certainly then we don't be arguing with him.
No, I mean, not that.
Could your dad agree with you?
Is
Like-
your parent allowed to agree with you?
Yeah.
Yes, your parent is allowed to agree with you.
Oh,
But
okay.
you have to say, listen, this is my dad's argument. If he wants my help, I'll ask for it. Or my mom. We think about that. Real respect. That's what we're obligated to do.
But aren't you like, okay, so it's against the Torah?
Yes, that's something else. There's an exception, right? If your parent says, like the famous example, if you're a Kohen and your dad tells you, go into the cemetery to get me something, you're not allowed to do it. Because
Kohen can't do that.
Kohen, male Kohens cannot walk into cemeteries.
But women Kohen?
Women could do it as much as they want. They could
I
make
don't want to marry a
tents.
Kohen then.
What? Why? It'd be awesome. You don't even go to funerals.
But I would and he wouldn't.
Well, you could say, listen, I'm not leaving my husband. I'm sorry. That would work. Bruce will tell you all the tricks.
I always wanted to know. You're a Kohen?
So he can't go to his wife's funeral?
No. There's seven exceptions. As Bruce would tell you, a Kohen is not allowed to go to a funeral, but there are 7 exceptions. Those 7 exceptions are father, mother, sister, brother, son, daughter, and spouse, wife.
Obviously.
Right. There are exceptions.
Stranger has nobody to bury him.
Right, Mace Mitzvah, right. Yeah, correct. Thank you.
Bonus points.
Right, 7 familial relationships. One of them is a situational.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got to Kohens. Agreed. Oh, yes. Right. So if your father tells you to do something which is bad for you, or it's against the Torah, what the Torah wants, or says, "Oh, I don't want you to marry this person," or something like that, something that affects you, you don't have to listen to them. Most certainly, if the father tells you something dangerous or something unsafe or something irresponsible or something which affects you, you don't have to listen to that. You're not obligated to listen to that, to that. But yes, Jason.
I do have a very serious question about that. And this may not parent, but I assume this would also hold to grandparent and grandchild on some level. And the reason why I say that, I'm guessing it doesn't, tell me if it doesn't, is because you have Rashi being one of the most famous commentators. And then you had his grandson Rashba, who disagreed with him in many cases in their interpretation, and certainly put out there that, you have Rashbam,
you have Rabbeinu Tam.
Rabbeinu Tam also.
Right, you have lots and lots of his grandkids that
How
argue.
do they disagree with their grandfather?
So the question is, it's possible, good question. What I would probably venture to say is that either Rashi encourages it, or there may be exceptions. When it comes to Torah, to arguing not practical themes, not mundane themes, but Torah themes, to argue, I know you're supposed to even argue with your parent, right? If you're studying Torah, this is how the sages describe how you're supposed to study Torah. When you study Torah, you have to be so fierce. And, if you walk into yeshiva, I don't know if any of y'all have ever been to a modern day yeshiva, but the yeshiva I went to, the one that had 5,000 students and 4 barbershops. 6,000 students, and in these enormous, massive rooms, right? Just, tons of buildings, but it's not it's not how you would imagine a college to be. Rather, it's these benches and these stenders, right? These little wooden, right? And very close, and they're screaming on top of their lungs for hours on end. Because they're arguing in Talmud, in the highest levels of Talmud. Arguing on top of their lungs and disagreeing, vehemently disagreeing. So much so the Talmud says is that when two people are learning and they disagree on something, they should argue and they should start hating each other. They hate each other. But in the end, when they finish arguing and they agree to what's actually correct and what's actually not correct, then they love each other again. So yes, there may be an exception for Torah. But if it's politics or something silly, you just you can't argue, but you can't even agree. You're respecting your parents, and it's not your place unless they ask for it to give your opinion. And your opinion holds no value. That's a tricky one. That's where we get depressed. Unless you're a parent, and then you get all fired up. Not yet, because not the Shem. Okay, so to what degree do we have to be so this is a few stories, and this is very strange stories here. I'm reading really quickly. You guys can follow along, or you can read. Rabbi Ula says, "How far does the honor of parents extend? I.e., to what degree? To what He replied, "Go forth and see what a certain idolater, Dama, the son of Nesina by name, did in Ashkelon." So there's a fellow whose name was Dama, the son of Nesina, who was an idolater. He wasn't Jewish, and he lived in Ashkelon. The sages once desired merchandise for him, in which there was a 600,000 gold denarii profit, i.e., he was making a lot of money. But the key was lying under his father, and he did not trouble him. He forfeited a major business deal because his dad was sleeping on a key. What does this mean? So it's elaborated in the next paragraph. Rabbi Judah said in the name of Shmuel, Rabbi Elazar was asked, "How far does the honor of parents extend?" Said he, "Go forth and see." So it's the same story. What a certain idolater, Dama, the son of Nesina by name, did in Ashkelon. What was the story? The sages sought jewels for the ephod. The ephod was the breastplate of the Kohen. Had these very rare stones in it. So they wanted a certain stone for the ephod at a profit of 600,000 gold denarii. Rabbi Kahana taught at a profit of 800,000 denarii. But the key was lying under his father's pillow, i.e. his father was sleeping, and the key to the safe was under his dad's pillow, and he did not disturb him. He said, "My dad's sleeping, I don't want to disturb him." And he forfeited the deal. The following year, the Holy One, blessed is he, gave him his reward, i.e. because he forfeited so much in order to honor his father and not wake him up. He got a reward. What was the reward? A red heifer was born to him in its herd. When the sages of Israel went to him to buy it, he said to them, "I know you, that even if I asked you for all the money in the world, you would pay me. But I ask of you only the money which I lost through my father's honor." That's the first story. Basically, what we have here is a question: to what degree you have to honor your parents, And the answer is there's a story of a certain idolater.
So from a goat, there's a cow?
I'll explain.
I'll explain to you afterwards.
Yeah. So there's a certain idolater whose name was Dama, the son of Messina, who lived in Ashkelon, and there was a major business deal, and he was going to sell a certain stone for a major profit. Problem is, the key to the safe was under his dad's pillow. He didn't wake up his dad. He forfeited the profit in honor of his parents. And as a reward, he got a red heifer. Red heifer means a red cow. More precisely, an orange cow. There's such a thing called orange cows, not actually red. We know that the process of purifying during the times of the temple, there was the idea of purity and impurity with regard to the temple, and part of the process was they used a red heifer, which is a small cow that's orange. They have orange cows, but it means a purely orange cow with no blemishes and no black or white hairs, and very valuable because it's very rare to have such a perfectly orange heifer. Heifer means a small cow. And he, as a reward for forfeiting the lucrative deal, now waking up his dad, he got that and he said, you know what? I know I can ask for any amount of money in the world, but I'll only ask for the 600 or 800,000 dinari that I lost. That's the story. And the idea being is so much you have to make sure not to respect and honor your parents, that even if it means losing a great amount of money. Yeah, that's the story. Now, there's a few major problems with this piece of Talmud. Right? Who do you think of some problems? What's the problem with the story?
You're not honoring your parents by losing your grandparents' money.
Well, or losing your own money. It's like, imagine, right? You get knock at the door, and you open the door, and David Karp, I don't know what David Karp is? Nobody knows. He's that 26-year-old kid who just sold Tumblr.
What? What are you talking about?
For $1.1 billion.
What is Tumblr? Is that an app or something?
That's like a website.
It's like a blog.
He sold it to Yahoo for $1.1 billion. Or some other multimillionaire.
Ridiculous.
He knocks on the door.
Is he Jewish? Just
He is, of course,
kidding.
he's Jewish. He's from New York.
For real? Just kidding.
David Karp from New York? Really?
I don't know. A lot of intermarriages. Who knows?
But he
That's
remember,
amazing.
he built the
Wow, I
website.
can't believe he built
Anyhow.
it. That's great.
Anyhow,
Yay.
so there's a knock at the door, and there's some billionaire outside here, and the guy says, listen, I'm on my way to a convention, and my Mercedes or whatever broke down, and I want to borrow your Honda Civic, and I'll give you $100,000 for the Honda Civic, and but right now, here's the money, take the money, or you go, right? Or I'll go to the neighbor, he'll get his Honda Civic, right? The car is worth like, I don't know, what, $4,500? It's 2004, it's pretty rusty, it's got like 95,000 miles in it. And imagine if your kid says, oh, listen, Dad's got the keys on his belt, and he's taking his nap, his siesta. I don't want to wake him up. Just imagine what kind of lashing would this kid get when his dad wakes up and finds out that he could have sold his Honda Civic that he was hoping could get stolen in the middle of the night anyhow, right? For insurance purposes. And he could have made tons of money. Oh, but he didn't wake him up because the keys were under his bed. Be furious. Be livid. Is that really what it means to honor your parents? To not wake them up, even if it means costing them a small fortune?
Depends on how much they like the car.
Oh, and how much I like sleeping.
Yes.
And additionally, I find to be very peculiar. Remember, what was the question? The original question started off with, to what degree do we need to honor our parents? That was the question. The only way to answer it is to find some idolater, someone who's engages in idol worship. Right? Remember, one of the Ten Commandments is also, don't be an idolater. The only guy in the world you could find that lived up to the standard necessary was an idolater? Really? That's the only guy you can find? That's the only example that you could hang up on a pedestal and say, this is how you're supposed to do properly? Kibbud Av V'Em, honoring your parents? You're going to find some nice pious Jew who fulfilled that degree of compliance. Very strange. To what degree? How much do you have to exert yourself in order to honor your parents? Oh, you know what? There was some idolater who was in Messina, who lived in Ashkelon. He's the one who did it correctly. And this question is actually compounded. If you take a look at the last of the paragraphs, when Rabbi Dimi came, what does it mean he came? Where was this book written? Where's the Talmud written? In Babylon. So when it came, it means he came from Israel to Babylon. Right? So when he came, he said, Dama ben Asina was once wearing a gold embroidered silken cloak and sitting amongst Roman nobles when his mother came, tore it off him, struck him on the head, and spat in his face, yet he did not shame her. Once again, another story about this same guy, Dama ben Asina, Dama the son of Messina, who once again exemplified how even though his mother seems to be totally deranged, and he's sitting there with all the noblemen of Rome wearing fancy clothing, right, gold embroidered clothing, and his mom comes over to and rips it off of him, right, hits him, and spits him in his face, and he was just silent. He just took the abuse. Once again, it seems like it's another story saying, even though his mom seems to be crazy, he still respected her. He still didn't, retort or say anything back to her, right? Even though he was embarrassed and publicly, amongst high society. So once again, this seems like it's another story about this great guy who was so successful at honoring his parents that he didn't even embarrass them even in such a scenario. But someone once pointed out, says, "Hey, listen, the mom is obviously deranged, right? The mom seems like she's out of her box, right? Seems crazy, right? She came, she ripped off his clothing, she hit him, and she spat at him, right? She seems to be pretty nuts, right? Maybe his dad was nuts as well." And maybe his dad didn't want to be disturbed in his sleep. Even if it means losing a very lucrative business deal.
What if you wake him up because you're not feeling good? Was he going to be upset then?
What if you're not feeling well?
Yeah, when you're like a child and you wake up and you're
No, the point is like this. If your parent would be upset if you woke them up, you shouldn't wake them up.
Even if you're sick?
No, it depends. Most parents, if their child is sick, they want to be woken up.
Oh.
So if your parent wants to be woken up, but if your parent does not want to be woken up,
then you don't.
Even if it means losing a lot of money, you don't wake them up.
Okay.
But the other question still remains unanswered. Why would we find there's no way to demonstrate this point, this dedication towards honoring parents, by finding some story about some nice Jewish kid who did it? Oh, there's some idolater. This is an interesting question. I
guess it doesn't give favoritism if they do an outside source. It doesn't say, "Oh, look at this family, and they're the better because we're using them as an example." But use an example from an outside source.
It's sort of like it's more objective.
Yeah.
It's more objective.
Oh, maybe. That makes a good job. That's
Interesting.
If we were connecting the idea of idolatry with fearing and respecting God, the fear of and respecting people, to get someone to say idolatry who's so far away from God there, but can still do this mitzvah at such a high level, and there is no connection between the two there. It just takes that much of a greater effort to be able to accomplish that.
Wow, I like that. Means we have a head start, you're saying. We do fear God. We're not idolaters. I don't like that. I didn't even think about it. Put two and two together. We have a head start. We respect God. It means we're God-fearing. This guy wasn't God-fearing. And he still honored his parents. I like that. I didn't even think about that. Interesting. So two interesting answers. What I did find, I found something very fascinating. We know that Esau, right, Jacob's twin brother, was renowned for his honoring of his parents. Right? We have like in the battle for the soul of humanity, in Jewish philosophy, we have Jacob, the Jews, and we have Esav. Esav is like Rome. It's purely physical versus spiritual. Like it's the battle of good versus evil is the same battle of Jacob and his twin brother. And still, Esau is still renowned for his honoring of his parents. Once again, you see an example of the Jewish person not necessarily being lauded for honoring parents, but Esau, who's representative of the Gentiles, he's the one who's pointed out as being particularly gifted or particularly apt or able in this mitzvah. Also curious. So one of the ideas that I saw to share with y'all is that honoring your parents, it makes sense. Why do you honor your parents? There's two reasons why you honor your parents.
And they take care of you.
Right. There's two ways to do it. You could say, listen, I'm honoring my parents because that's what the Torah says. That's what the Torah says. Why? What's the rationale? Well, that's a type of discussion. But the reason why I'm doing it, the Torah says honor your parents. The second I do that, that enables me to honor my parents in any situation. Idolaters, they don't care about the Torah. Right? They don't care about the Torah. What they're saying is, why I'm honoring my parents. Why am I honoring my parents? Because it makes sense. There's two reasons. It makes sense. Your parents gave you a lot, right? It makes sense to honor them.
Yeah.
There's two reasons why we honor our parents. Either because it makes sense, or that's what the Torah says. Right? There are some mitzvahs that are logical, like honoring your parents. So even Gentiles embrace them. What was his reward? Better yet, what's the most illogical mitzvah for us to understand? We know there's mitzvahs that are logical, make sense to us. Do not murder, right? Don't steal, honor your parents. And then there are mitzvahs that are way beyond the grasp of the human intellect. And the paragon of the mitzvahs that we cannot understand, Jason? Red heifer. How the red heifer works, totally beyond human comprehension. And we know that this is always used. There's different categories of mitzvahs. The mitzvahs that make sense, called mishpatim. There's chukim, which is that are edicts. It's because that's what God says, and you don't possibly have the brain power to understand it. And honoring your parent, that seems at the top of the list of the mitzvahs that make sense. He honored his parents. Why did he honor his parents? It made sense. What's his reward? He gets a red heifer. Doesn't seem to have the same value. If honoring your parent makes sense, at least to the human intellect, red heifer doesn't make at all any sense to the human intellect. So the idea being is that Dama Nesina, right? Dama the son of Nesina. You're honoring your parents. We have to view that as we're honoring our parents, so that's what we're told. So that's what the Torah says. So if I have a hard time honoring my parents, my parents, let's say maybe he's not worthy, or he or she is not worthy of being honored, I still have to do it. Why? Because in reality, the reason why I'm doing it is the same reason why I do the red heifer. I'm doing it because that's what I'm told. So yes, like I said, I think that every child at some point has an issue with at least one of their parents. Generally, it's the opposite sex, right? That is, generally, you actually fight with the same sex. You fight. So if you're a boy, you actually fight with your father, your dad. It's usually there's no rules to it. But girls have issues with their mom. They come to their soccer games and they try to befriend their friends, and anyhow, everyone has their own experiences. But this is not an easy thing. And we cannot say, especially if we understand what it means, like, really, I can't agree with them, I have to respect them, I have to stand up for them. It's a lot to ask for us. And especially, this is compounded by many times where we see the flaws of our parents. We do see the flaws of parents. Those things jump out at us. We have like a microscope that's able to, or a telescope, or what are those things called? A magnifying glass that just enlarges our parents' shortcomings. We have to say we're doing it because we're obligated to do it. It's like the red heifer. And those are my thoughts. And I hope it just gives us a little bit of perspective about what it means to honor parents. We're equating honoring parents with honoring God. How awesome is that? We have to be grateful. They brought us here. They took care of us. My wife even tells me that sometimes kids wake up at night. The parents have to wake up and tend to them, or mothers, whatever.
Mothers or fathers. Okay.
Or fathers, that's a joke. And there's also the idea of, yes, it's going to be challenging, it's going to be difficult, but ultimately you have to do it because you have to do it. No way different than the red heifer. Sometimes you have to do it, you don't understand it. I think it's like that in relationships, like that as well. Sometimes things don't make sense, and you gotta just do it. You gotta just do it because that's what's right thing to do.
Take that.
Yes, but I would advise if anyone here encounters their parents anytime soon, try standing up for them. See the reaction.
Fathers will do that.
Right? Try it. Talk to them in third person. They'll like it, I think.
The third person?
Yeah. What does father want for breakfast?
No. Oh wait, question, because I actually don't call my dad, and I don't call him father. I call him Padre. So do I say, what does Padre want? What does Madre want? That's like...
I don't know. I just think that it's something that's worth to try, and sometimes you'll be surprised how your parents may embrace it. They may say, yeah, finally, the kid's finally picking it up.
I think they're going to be like, what is wrong with you?
Okay, so you say, you know what? Do you let me call you? Do you let me call you in first person? And they'll be like, yeah, you could do it. But remember, that's respect. That's honor.
So do you call them the parental unit then? I mean...
Parental units?
What does the parental unit want?
What does the masculine parental unit want? So that's that. And send me, and once again, next week, if there's a particular issue that you want to hear about, or you want to hear a perspective, respective operation, I have a lot to say about that.
That's what I thought you were getting into. I was like, oh, okay.
Yes, and thank you all for coming. Hope you all enjoyed.
I just have a really quick question.